Banette is one of my favorite Pokemon. I mean, just look at it. It's amazing. Anyway, I haven't played Pokemon Infinite Fusion since its last update that added new Pokemon, so I decided to replay this beloved fan game while only using Banette Fusions. For my starters, I had the options of this little beetle guy, Edward Scissorhands as a lizard, or Purple Dragon. Even though none of these are the best boy Banette, I decided to take the Crobat and Haxorus fusion for now. As for my rival fight, well, it was pretty much a wash for Edward. And now with the Pokédex, I can finally hunt for my go-to ghost. After about 2 hours of resetting the random encounters, I finally ran into this guy. And after catching 6 of them, it was time to make my first fusion. Now, other than having a level cap, my only other rule is that I can only have 1 fusion per gym. So I fused my Haxorus with a Banette to get a new Pokemon, Executioner. Also at the bottom of the screen, you can see who created the sprite, so big shout out to the sprite artist for this game. Now with Executioner in my party, I can face off against Brock. Brock leads with an Omens that quickly gets destroyed by Dragon Rage. Next up was his final Pokemon, Tyrannovire, that also gets wiped out by a couple Dragon Rages from Executioner for the first badge. Now with my first badge, I could add another Banette fusion to the team. This time I fused my Crobat with a Banette to get Lilith. And with her, I uncovered Team Rocket's plan to fuse multiple Pokemon together, but it fails, so on the face Misty's gym. Lilith manages to get her Azumarill down into the yellow before she gets knocked out by a critical rollout. From there, I send out Executioner to Dragon Rage on her remaining Azumarill, as well as the following Armogre for the Cascade badge. After the second gym, I go back to Mount Moon and catch a Gothic Hatsune Miku, as well as I catch a Stand-Up Rock on Route 4. But because I can only use 3 Pokemon at this point, I unfuse Lilith so I can make a new Pokemon with Banette and Lycanroc. His name will be Ikichi. Then with my freshly caught Meloetta, I create Nyx. And here's where something new happens, or at least I think it's new. After creating Nyx, I get prompted with other sprites for this fusion, so I go with this one. By the way, all the Banette sprite artists will be linked in the description below. And after leveling up my new Pokemon, I face my rival again. His first Pokemon is a Pikachu and Dodrio fusion that I managed to take out with a critical confusion. Next comes out his Dragon-type Evolution that gets completely destroyed by a couple Dragon Rages. Actually, the rest of his Pokemon also get taken out by Executioner. So now I can help out Bill because he turned himself into whatever the hell this thing is. So now I can get the SS and ticket where I get cut from the captain so I can go face the next gym. Lieutenant Surge starts off with a Bi-Reap that withstands 1 confusion, before, you know, being taken out by another one. Now with Nyx asleep, I send out Ikichi to deal with this Raichu fusion, but after getting hit with 1 Thunderbolt, I swap into Executioner to take it out with my favorite move. Last up was this guy, and just look at how badass this sprite is. Anyway, I send out Ikichi to throw some rocks at it, where he somehow manages to tank an Electro Ball and manages to live on 1 HP. So after escaping the clutches of death, I send out Executioner again to take care of it with Hex for the Thunder badge. Then as I'm exploring every Gen 1 Pokemon fan's favorite area, Rock Tunnel, I catch this Umbreon fusion. So now I can fuse a new Banette with Umbreon to get my newest teammate Jupiter. And now with my 4th teammate, I face my rival again. His first Pokemon is, whatever the hell this thing is, but whatever it is, it's no match for Jupiter. As for his Quagfan with 1 Dragon Dance followed up by Dragon Claw, it never stood a chance. With Nyx, I take advantage of his Kecleon's color changing ability to make it Psychic type with Confusion, only then to hit it with a super effective Dark type attack for the KO. Then in order to get more levels on Jupiter, I use it to spam Hex on Tangrath for the win against my rival. But after the fight, we see Team Rocket bully the elderly for fun, but I decide not to help because I need to face the 4th gym. But I can't face the gym anyway because Erika wants me to fight off Team Rocket. Yay. After breaking into their base, I'm challenged by their leader, Giovanni. But more importantly, I find a Raticate fusion just straight up chilling in the sewers, so you know I had to capture it. Anyway, back to Giovanni. He leads with this buff-ass Onix, but thanks to a little move called Shadow Ball, it's nothing to really worry about. The same thing can be said about his next Pokemon too. Then for his final Pokemon, well, that is certainly one of the fusions of all time. But anyway, remember that move Shadow Ball? But now with the Sylph Scope in hand, I use it to save the old dude. But first, I take on Erika's gym. She starts off with a Mushroom Gremlin that quickly quickly falls to a single Shadow Ball from Nyx. As for her next Pokemon, it goes down to a single Psybeam from Nyx. Then for her final Pokemon, it really doesn't do that much either. So it goes down to a couple Acrobatics from yours truly for the Rainbow Badge. Now with a new badge means a new fusion. So I fused the rat I found in the sewer with another one of my Banettes to get this beauty. Now even though he may not look like it, this guy's an absolute unit. Then after saving the old guy, I get the Pokeflute so I could wake up the Snorlax that turns out to be this thing that Pasta absolutely destroys. By the way, his name is Pasta now. Now it was time to unlock my final teammate by beating Koga in a battle. For his first Pokemon, I send out Pasta, and as I was spamming Crunch, I get hit with Poison Fang, leaving Pasta poisoned. But that's actually a good thing, because it means Guts is now activated, meaning the Hyper Potion Koga used went to waste. Then for his next Pokemon, I send out Executioner to set up 2 Dragon Dances, and from there Koga's team was completely wiped out by a single one of my Pokemon for the Soul Badge. Next up was the Safari Zone for the Surf HM, as well as another Banette Fusion with this Goodra. So, now I know I typically name my fused Pokemon, but for this Goodra and Banette Fusion, I decided not to. Not because I forgot, but because the name Goonette was already funny enough. If you know, you know. So now, with a full team, I decided to go ahead and face the next gym. But in order to do so, I need to fight Giovanni. And in order to fight Giovanni, I need to beat my rival again. So, for his first Pokemon, I used Pasta to set up a Sword Dance, and after taking a Rock Slide, I hit it with Hyper Fang, activating its eject button. So he sends out Solo Quaza, that gets absolutely decimated by a Crunch with my Pasta. We love him. Then with 2 more Crunches, his Kecleon fusion goes down. Then his Shuckthorn comes back out, just so it can also be destroyed by my plush rat. His Quagmire was a different story though. After spamming it with Shadow Ball from Nyx, I send out Executioner to Dragon Pulse it. But then he decides to take a little nap, so Goonette came out to finish it off with Body Slam. Finally, Ikichi came out to land a couple Rock Slides on his Umbreon for the win, and after my victory we both team up to face Giovanni in a battle. The battle already starts off poorly with his Shellster dealing a heavy blow to Pasta. Then I send out Executioner only to be hit with an unlucky critical Hydro Pump. So then I send out Jupiter, and he manages to take out Giovanni's Shellster with Shadow Ball. Then I send out Nyx to do a U-turn on this Grass-type monkey for another knockout. Finally, his last 2 Pokemon are out of damaging moves, so I send out Goonette to Shadow Ball his Milopert. Then my rival's Quagmire uses Earthquake to finish off his Umbreon for the win against Giovanni. Now, with Team Rocket out of town, I can finally face off against Sabrina. And instead of explaining what happens, I'll just show you instead. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why he's my GOAT. Now it was time for Blaine's gym. And to be completely honest with you guys, if something isn't broken, there's no point in trying to fix it. So now with the Volcano badge, I'm asked by the sailor to retrieve his stolen boat from Team Rocket. And as I'm swimming to the island, I run into a Genesect. So I decide to catch it. Now, as much as I love Goonette, I decided to retire him from the party so that I could fuse Banette and Genesect together to get this absolute beauty. But then I changed the sprite artwork to the funny anime reference that I don't know because I've only been watching One Piece for the last year. So now with the power of God and anime on my side, I face Giovanni's mad science experiment with the 3 legendary birds. First, I send out Ikichi to land a Stone Edge on Articuno, taking it out first so it can't freeze my other Pokemon. Now with Ikichi paralyzed, I send out Executioner to land a Dragon Claw on Zapdos before he sadly fell. Luckily this isn't a Nuzlocke. I then send out Pasta to land a Hyper Fang, but it doesn't deal enough damage and he also falls. Nyx finally finished up Zapdos, but then Moltres of course lands a critical hit, dealing massive damage to Nyx. Next up was Anime, who brings Moltres into the yellow, but then she also falls because she's part bug type. Now with everything in Jupiter's hands, I land a Sucker Punch to bring it closer into the red, but then I tank a Flamethrower, only to land a Shadow Ball next turn for the KO on Giovanni's Dream. Speaking of Giovanni, guess who the next gym leader is? His first Pokemon is a Happy Chomp, so with a couple surfs from Executioner, his Pink Dragon was done for. Next up was his Tie-Nub. It gets one-shotted. Next up was his Lux-Nub. It missed its only chance to attack. For his Solo Nub, I changed things up a bit by sending out Pasta to land a few crunches on it. Finally, for his Poriange, I used Nyx to hit it with Psybeam for the final gym badge. And now, with all 8 badges, I can face off against the Elite Four. But before I do, I catch a Gengar Fusion in Victory Road, and I made the difficult decision to retire Nyx for my new Gengar and Banette Fusion, Frankie. So now, with my final teammate in place, it was time to face the Elite Four. First up was the Ice-type trainer, Lorelei. Her first Pokemon was a Lapras and Gloom Fusion, but after spamming Shadow Ball with Frankie, it was over and done with quickly. Next up was her Snowdon, so with a few more Shadow Balls, it was also done for. Anime then came out and landed a Flame Charge, boosting her speed so that she can then outspeed Lorelei's Pokemon, landing a critical hit for another knockout. Then for her next Pokemon, Anime outspeeds, but she sadly doesn't kill. But it didn't matter anyway because her Wind Stare misses its attack for another Anime Girl knockout. Finally, for her Ice-type Alakazam, I land a Flame Charge, but then Anime gets knocked out by Blizzard. So I send in Jupiter to land a Sucker Punch for the win against Lorelei. So now on to Bruno. Bruno starts off with a Hitmonoom, and I start off with Pasta. So he could land 2 Hyper Fangs for the first knockout of the battle. Next up was his Double E, that gets taken out by a couple Flame Charges from Anime, boosting her speed in the process. Then for his Hitmondos, I swap into Jupiter to use Phantom Force for another KO. Then for his Klinketta, I use Anime and Flame Charge again. And for his final Pokemon, none of its attacking moves could hit me, so it's a free win against Bruno. As for Agatha's Pokemon, well, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. Phantom Force made a complete mockery of her team. So now onto the final Elite Four member, Lance. His first Pokemon goes down to a couple Dragon Claws from Executioner before getting hit with a Dragon Tail from his Dragocate, bringing out Frankie, and then with another Dragon Tail, Pasta comes out to land 2 crunches, finishing off the rat for good. Then for his Dradine, I use Anime to take it out with Charge Beam, boosting her special attack in the process. His next Pokemon is part Ghost, so with 2 Shadow Balls, it's already done for. And finally, Executioner lands a single Dragon Claw on Lance's Fanity for the win. Now, in order to be crowned champion, I need to face my rival one last time. I use Executioner to set up a couple Dragon Dances on his Septikin, and then when the time is right, I land a single Dragon Claw for a one-shot kill. His Persand did land an Assurance on me, but Executioner tanked it for the knockout on a second Pokemon. As for his Dongron, it manages to tank a Phantom Force and lands a Magnitude 7, knocking out Executioner, so I send out Frankie to outspeed with Shadow Ball for the kill. Then he sends out whatever the hell this thing is, but after a few Flame Charges from Anime, it was no more. Then I took advantage of his Kecleon's color changing ability for the last time. I hit it with a Ghost type attack and followed it up by a Sucker Punch for another knockout. Finally, with another Venoshock from Frankie, his Grass type rat was done for, and with his defeat, I was crowned champion by the league. So, can you beat Pokemon Infinite Fusion with only Banette Fusions? Well, I'm here to say you can. If you enjoyed this video, it would be really cool if you could leave a like, and if you want to see more like this in the future, make sure you subscribe for more. Thank you all so much for watching, and have a fantastic day.